Hello and welcome to another episode of No Spin Live. Tonight is actually Ladies' Night, and we have with us, Dr. Mary Gingras, Dr. Christy Hustet, and Christine Hamori. We're going to be talking tonight about the fakes, fake procedures, fake results, and fake credentials. So the first picture we're going to be looking at together is an image. We all see images on the internet. We see images on Instagram. I know every day when I drive to work, there's a local surgeon who is not a plastic surgeon who has a billboard that I have to drive by, and that billboard has one fake image after another. It's like, great, I'm going to this guy if he can do a facelift like that. So we all know that what we see on billboards, on Instagram, and then we have an image here, and I just wanted to ask if Mary, if you could take a look at this. This is supposed to be a skincare line. What are your thoughts?
I mean, when I look at something like this, I think surely nobody thinks that you can do this with skincare alone. And this is what this Instagram post was implying, that this was a result from just skincare. And I mean, there's absolutely no way that you could get that improvement with skincare products alone. I mean, she's obviously had surgery. She's had, they don't show, purposely they don't show the lower part where she's probably had a tummy tuck and there's a scar around her belly button. So it's obviously fake. She's obviously had something done. Plus a lot of them are photoshopped. If we could show some of the other ones, but I just, unfortunately, buyers have to beware now. There's stuff like this all over the place. Here we have a really typical Photoshop. If you look at the progression here, this is not from surgery alone. This is from the airbrush tool on Photoshop and Build-A-Butt. So it's unethical, and our society, the American Society for Plastic Surgery and our aesthetic society, put really onerous rules on us. So the real plastic surgeons aren't allowed to do this, or will get ethics violations.
Exactly. Let me ask Christine, what do you think too? I mean, what you just brought up, Mary, is a really good point. We'll get into other boards and fake credentials in a minute, but one of the things that is that required on our ads is that they put a label that says model, or that they say an actual patient. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great idea. I think a lot of people are using these stock images, and patients need to look to see if there looks like there's evidence of airbrushing. You usually can tell with some pixelation that's present, and basically if it looks too good, it's not true. And like these kind of pictures where there's different coloring, the underwear are different. I mean, it's very, very difficult to compare them. And I think we just have to educate the public about being a discerning customer and just using reasonable sense that a cream is not going to help lift your buttocks. It's not going to smooth your abdomen.
No. Christy, do patients
ever buying stock?
Exactly. Do patients ever bring in these kinds of pictures to you and show them to you on their phone?
Oh, all the time. They're like, I want what this doctor's doing.
Right.
And I was like, well, then why didn't you go to that doctor? The reason. I mean,
you can do this, right?
Right, exactly. So, and nobody's really talked about lighting and angles either.
Yes.
I mean, this is a classic trick where you shine light to produce shadows, particularly with like these Z waves and cellulite treatment and whatnot, because that's when we all look the worst, right? When you're, nobody wants to go to that place to try on the clothes that's got those beaming lights in the trying rooms, because you look awful in everything,
Right.
And this is the same thing. You can really make something look awful just with the lighting, and conversely, it can make it look great if you change the lighting and the angles. And
a bad spray tan.
Yeah, spray tan.
Filters, right? I mean,
right. Filters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people are getting a little more savvy about filters because, I mean, it's certainly the younger people, they know how to use them, so they know what they can do. But unfortunately, those of us that didn't grow up with social media or photo editing, I think our generation sometimes doesn't know what's photo edited. So it should get better with time, but I think a lot of people are still fooled by this.
Right, and it's all marketing ploys, right? I mean, this is all just to make $1. And, we hold ourselves to a higher ethics, but You know, are we losing, the question is, are we losing that marketing battle? You know, you hope that you can just educate enough that people are becoming more realistic, you know, and I hate these still photos. Show me a series. If you can reproduce this 50 times and you can show me different angles, then awesome. But, you know, these are just internet-based still photos in one time, you know.
And that's where I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to talk about who gets to do things like this. I mean, what we've talked about before, we know that as members of the American Board of Plastic Surgery, we have a set of bylaws and we have ethics that we have to follow, or we will be reporting. On our websites, we have to have actual images and say that they are actual patients or models, as we mentioned. But let's talk a little bit about who gets away with this kind of stuff and calls themselves a cosmetic or an anti-aging or an aesthetic doctor.
There are people that really are taking weekend courses. They may be an MD, they may not be an MD, but even if they are an MD, they'll see that, wow, people are making a lot of money doing cosmetic surgery, and I'm going to get in on the game. And they start with doing Botox and fillers, and pretty soon they're going to weekend courses to learn how to do liposuction, and they can't get privileges at hospitals. So you definitely have to beware of anybody that only operates in their surgery center. Now, there are plenty of ethical doctors who operate in their own office surgery centers, but the people who are going to these weekend courses can and only do these procedures in their offices because they can't get privileges because they're not certified by a real board.
Right, yeah. So there's 24 recognized boards, and then of course there's subspecialties underneath there. But I mean, this concept just drives me bonkers, right? If you don't, get the training, forget it. Why not get the training? You just make up your own board, right? I mean, you could just, I want to be the board of, purple dinosaurs. I just make up a board if there's not a purple dinosaur one. I mean, that's essentially what these cosmetic guys did. They knew they weren't credentialed to do it, so they make up their own board in complete intent to deceive. Because that's all it is a marketing ploy to say, oh no, I'm a cosmetic surgeon. And then the verbiage has changed such that, like, I've even heard them argue that they do better cosmetic surgery than plastic surgeons because they practice reconstructive. They don't actually learn cosmetics, and we learn just cosmetics, so we're better. I mean, that's just baloney.
I've seen a lot now is, we have a lot of these independent, especially in the state of New Jersey, nurse practitioners or some type of a nurse injector. So what we have going into the spas around here and the salons, I don't know if you have it in your parts of the country, is a nurse that is an injector who has a collaborative agreement with an internist who purchases their Botox and Juvederm from the companies who sell to them, they're not even present. They're doing this in a spa, and we have one she calls herself a cosmetic dermatologist. On the ads, on her brochures, where I get my nails done, I wanted to throw up. I don't even want to go back to that spa if she's supporting. They come into the spa at night. So she's a nurse of some type. I don't even know if she's American trained, and she is a collaborative agreement with some pediatrician and some dermatologist. But what gets me is that the manufacturers sell to them, and they really don't care. So we support the manufacturers with what we do for all these years with their research and education and training, and they just sell it out to the derms and the pediatricians and the gynecologists. And they would like the hot dog truck where you basically walk up and get your Botox, which is what I've heard that they'd like to do next.
I think some of the problem is that the public's not only not educated, it looks very easy to do these procedures. So a lot of providers like, oh, I can squirt some Botox in, I can suck some fat out, and they have the perception that they don't have to get more training, that they can just go to a weekend course because it's easy. Look at that, there's a tiny incision. How could you hurt someone doing this? And then they believe that they can do it. Then they have followers, right? That 747 room, they have the patients that are coming to them to do their pap smears. Oh, I'll do a little liposuction for you. And they believe them as a doctor, so they're vulnerable. They're attacking patients that are vulnerable, saying, well, I trust you, a physician, and I think that you could help because I just need a little lipo and it's not too complicated. So that's what happens. It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, the number one breast aug surgeon for lots of years, maybe a decade ago, was a dermatologist. He was a dermatologist that went to a 6-month apprenticeship doing cosmetic surgery because he had Mohs surgery training. So he said he was a surgeon, surgical training, and he's a dermatologist. But, he still got implants from our manufacturers, a couple of them at least.
The people that are out there and they come in and sometimes they kind of have their tail between their legs and they almost don't want to admit like where they've been, and they're educated, you know, smart, for the most part women. Certainly there are some men too, but it's they feel horrible that they just didn't know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time they get to my office and they're looking for help to fix some of these problems, they've done their homework and they know exactly what mistakes they've made. So that is at least happening more and more, where people are getting educated. Unfortunately, some of them are learning the hard way.
Well, that was a really interesting evening. So for more information on this topic, just go to theplasticsurgerychannel.com.